Hello, fellow readers and booktubers. In 1998, Michael Cunningham published his novel, The Hours. A year later, it won the Pulitzer for fiction. A couple years after that, it was made into a film. The movie was nominated for a number of awards. It did win the Academy Award for Nicole Kidman for Best Actress. But to get back to the novel, this is quite a remarkable novel. I don't think I've ever read anything quite like it. Because there's something in the writing style here. I mean, it's beautifully written, but there's something very delicate about it. As you're reading it, if you read it too quickly or try to rush through this, it might shatter in your hands like glass. It might seem kind of odd, but that's how I felt about it. I handled the book very carefully. It's not a very long book. It's a little over 200 pages, but this is not a book to be rushed through. It's a book that you need to take some time with and be very careful with it. The story, I'd heard of this book over the years, and I was always kind of curious about it. The one thing that kept me away from it, though, is that I knew that even though it's a novel, one of the characters in it is a real person, Virginia Woolf. And I know who Virginia Woolf is. I know her importance to literature and to the culture at large. I even know the names of some of her novels. Mrs. Dalloway, for example, is probably her most famous novel. But, her works are one of the many gaps in my literary history. I've never read any of her work. So I know of her, but I really don't know what kind of writer she is or how she approached the craft. And so that always kept me away from reading this. But for whatever reason, I decided, maybe I'll give it a look. And I started reading it. I really got pulled into it. A few pages in, though, I'm thinking maybe I should put this on the shelf for a while and familiarize myself a little more with Virginia Woolf. But somehow this novel transcends that. So I'm going to recommend this. And even if you don't know who Virginia Woolf is, that's okay. Cunningham is such a brilliant writer. He gets you over that hump. Also, there are three main characters in this book, three women. There's Virginia Woolf herself. It is a fictionalized version of Virginia Woolf. Cunningham certainly did his research. He talks about that, and he writes a little afterword to this, and he lists all the books that he read and studied, so he can kind of get into the mind of Virginia Woolf. But it is a fictionalized version of her. And it's not the story of her life. It's just the story of a certain moment in her life. And Cunningham somehow miraculously gets into her mind and help to try to give you a sense of what she must have been thinking at a certain moment in her life. The other two characters, there's a character named Clarissa, which just happens to be the first name of Mrs. Dalloway, which is the title and main character of probably Virginia Woolf's most famous novel. So the character of Clarissa in this book, though, is given the nickname Mrs. Dalloway because of that. And she's given that nickname by a friend of hers who is dying of AIDS. The third woman in this is Mrs. Brown. And she is a woman who is striving very hard to be the perfect wife and mother. But in the process, she's dying inside. She's killing something inside of herself. The novel jumps back and forth through time. There are some chapters talk about, it's Virginia Woolf living about right around the beginning of World War II. There are chapters about Mrs. Brown, who is the 1950s wife in suburbia, and again, trying to live that strange vision or that trying to be that perfect 1950s suburban wife. And then there is Clarissa, Mrs. Dalloway, in quotes, who lives in New York. It seems like it's in the 1980s at some point at the height of the AIDS epidemic. And so the novel just keeps bouncing back and forth between the three. And but each one of these three women is suffering greatly with their own identities and with death, either metaphorically speaking or literally speaking. In fact, death is kind of another character in this book. It's there, it's ever present, and eventually it will overwhelm some of them. but it's written about. It's written. Death is written about in this novel in a very honest way, in a very unsentimental way, but not without feeling. Cunningham just does a remarkable job here. That's all I can say. It will touch you deeply. Now I know for myself it was especially poignant because I read this just about a week after my mother-in-law had passed, who I love deeply, and about 5 days after she had died, my own mother died. So death was haunting my life at the moment I start reading this book. Maybe that's why it pulled me in so much, and maybe that's why it touched me so much. But I think even if you're not going through any kind of crisis in your life, you'll find this book very endearing, and I think you will enjoy it. So I strongly recommend this, The Hours by Michael Cunningham. That's what I have for you today. Take care of yourselves and never stop reading.